Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Doug, and today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics and most important topics in the world of fitted caps, and that is comfort, how the cap feels on your head. I like to start with material because there's tons of choices out there. Mostly in fitted cap world, we all know it's been wool and polyester. And there's also blends of wool and acrylic, sometimes all acrylic. There's some cotton caps out there, though you don't often see that in fitteds. But there's just a lot of materials that have been used, and also a lot of textures that have been used. If you look at something like the Hex-Tech or the Diamond Era before that New Era used to use in their spring training caps. So lots of choices out there. The material does factor in. As we work our way around the cap, the next thing I'd say to consider is the buckram. That is the stiffening material behind the front two panels in the cap. And basically that gives the entire cap its structure, and it is shapeable. But I have noticed variation in that buckram over the years with different caps that I've gotten, how it behaves, how well it responds to shaping. It's just another factor in the comfort of the cap. And when those two panels are coming together, basically there's another seam there that can be one stiffening element, and then you've got an embroidered logo that's added to the seam that's running down the center of those two panels. So what happens is this can act as a very structural element in the cap, and it can make that seam very stiff. And sometimes when you have that up against the top of your head, your forehead, it can be very unforgiving depending on the depth, size, and shape of the embroidery that's on there. The stitching through those panels can read through the buckram and basically transmit the shape of that, and it might be a little bumpy, a little rough, into the backside of the buckram, which is contacting the top of your head and forehead. The other pretty important ingredient is the visor and the ability of that visor to really hold a curve. So I've talked in a lot of my videos about my head shape. It's really considered a long oval by a hat maker. And so I like to have a curved visor because what it does is it changes the perimeter shape. And so I really look for visors that can hold a curve. And with New Era, this is actually one of the great benefits of the 5950 because I think they use a terrific visor material, which seems to be the perfect blend of sort of the resilience of a plastic resin, but also the shape holding ability of more like a fiber construction. So the New Era visor is just about perfect in my view, and I have done a couple of teardowns of visors in the past in New Era caps. You can check those out at my channel if you're interested in that any further. Now, one of the last, but maybe the most important ingredients in comfort by my perception is the sweatband. I mean, it might seem obvious, but it's amazing how much of a difference a sweatband can make and how that cap feels on your head. And it probably stands to reason because that is the primary contact surface on your head. So if that material is friendly to the skin and hair, it is going to feel much, much better as the whole cap sits on your head than something that's rough and unforgiving and maybe has some interruptions or irregularities in the surface. And we'll get started with a bad example of comfort. And I would start with this Memphis Grizzlies two-tone 5950. Now this was a GCP 5950. I'm guessing that some viewers out there could tell me exactly what that acronym means. But in my book, it is sort of a lower crown profile. It seems like it's almost halfway between a standard 5950 and a low profile crown. But anyways, I picked this up on clearance at lids.com, and this was a few years ago. But the thing here is that that crown is so low and raked back, and I'm not big on the low crown 5950 all the time for comfort anyways. I like a little bit more volume and space above my forehead. This is also a made in USA, which is normally a benefit because sometimes those caps feel a little bit softer, and I'll talk about that in a moment too. But one of the things that I really didn't like about the Made in USA caps is they never seem to correct this ridge that would happen underneath the seam tape. So I've noticed on all the caps coming from other sources, that seam tape right here over your forehead is very flat. And so it's pretty comfortable, rests against your head, no problem. what you get here is kind of this raised ridge that's it's very linear with the stitching, and I think it's where they join the two panels of fabric, stitch it together, and then they kind of fold it over and trap it with the seam tape. That is aligned right with your forehead, and what that does is it really kind of almost cuts into my forehead, not breaking the skin or anything, but it definitely leaves a red mark on my forehead. If I had it to do over again, I would have gone up 1/8 of a size and tried to keep that ridge away from my forehead. And just to give you a sense for what this looks like when it's on, I'll put this on really quick. There it is, and you can see I've dropped some of the height in the crown from the previous hat that I had on. So another cap that I'd rank pretty low, but for different reasons, is this Cubs cap. And this is a cap I picked up from Hat Club. It was a two-tone custom, and it's a great design. It's got the, I believe, 1916 logo that you see in a lot of Cooperstown caps. And I love it with the kind of the dark royal and the red visor. I was so disappointed to get this one and find out that it's one of the least comfortable caps I have. And mainly I would say that because this crown is stacked so high, I don't know if the video does it justice. So here I've got this Cubs cap on, and I just feel like it's so stacked here. And there's this curl at these seams, which tells me that there was a little bit too much material left up above the sweatband when they did the fold over there. So it's just really stacked here, and these corners up here I feel are almost unshapeable. Now, I've got a lot of videos out there that teach you how to use steam to kind of shape and form those. And I have tried my own techniques many times on this cap, and I just can't get it to a place where I feel like it's a good cap for me, feels good, looks good, etc. But unfortunately, it's one of the Bangladesh-made caps, which a lot of New Era 5950 customers have had complaints about with the super stiff crowns and the buckram that's used there. So it's not a comfortable hat. And I would say for a third example of a cap in my collection that does not feel very good on my head and I just can't get comfortable is pretty much anyone in my collection that has a made in Bangladesh tag inside of it. And it's really unfortunate. Again, I made a video about that, but I have gotten a ton of caps that I've had to do so much work on. Some of them I'm successful, some of them I'm not, like this one. Just not comfortable, and I'd rather choose other hats to wear. Now, if we move on to talk about some caps that are comfortable and some of the most comfortable ones that I own, I would start with Exhibit A is this Montreal Expos Dark Royal cap that I got from eCaps Unlimited online. Now, I would just say that this is the perfect execution of a 5950. If you just went out and picked up an on-field cap, modern day, 2021 here, this one has all those standard materials, but it just feels great. Now, I will say that this is wool and not the polyester that you would get in an on-field. But the execution, the sweatband, the buckram, the logo, all those things I talked about, it's a very wearable cap, and it's probably just what I expect. It's kind of the baseline of what I expect out of a 5950. Another cap, which takes this a little bit further in terms of execution, is this Detroit Tigers. I believe this is a 1918 logo that was released on a dark navy cap by Hat Club a year or two ago. So I picked this up, and this is another great example of current materials. It's actually got a green undervisor, so the historic nod there. But when I put this on, it is just slips on so easily. And this one does have a little bit lower crown, so where I was talking about that Memphis cap earlier, the lower crown kind of hurts. This one just feels so natural, and it is a standard 5950, but it's got the flat seam tape under there. The logo's not too all-encompassing, so it's not stiffening up everything in the front of the cap. And everything about this just is super comfortable. It slips on easily. Again, it feels like after a while I'm not really wearing a cap, so I think this is a terrific execution as well. And I'm just kind of glad I got lucky because this is an online purchase, no chance to try it on. Chances are it's going to sell out before you can return it for a different cap if you don't like it. So got lucky with this one, and this is one of my favorite caps. Now here's where we're getting to the core of what I was saying earlier about the sweatband and how it's the primary contact interface between the cap and your head. And I brought out this 2000 New York Mets two-tone cap. I got this as a Cooperstown reissue from Hat Club, and you'll note there's no New Era flag on the side, which I kind of like. Now when you flip to the inside of this cap, you do see a white sweatband and gray undervisor. But the unique thing to me about this is this white sweatband. It's got kind of a double line stitching that's visible on the side, but this is one of the softest sweatbands that I've ever felt in a 5950. I mean, it doesn't really have a layer of padding, one that you can see that's been folded over like in a current on-field. It's just kind of the thickness of the material that provides the padding itself. So if there's something in there, I can't find really evidence of it. It just seems like a very generous material in terms of the thickness and the padding, and the surface smoothness is terrific. So this cap is really a natural to put on, just like that Tigers cap I just took off, but man, it just feels great when the sweatband hits your forehead. So I really have not seen a ton of caps with this material. And again, this is a reissue that I probably bought in 2018 or so from Hat Club. But whatever New Era did to make this sweatband, boy, I'd like to see more of this in some other caps. For the last cap in my collection that I feel is the pinnacle of comfort, it might be surprising, but I've actually got a 47 brand Pittsburgh Pirates cap that I believe is the single most comfortable cap in my collection. You all know me, I'm a 5950 guy, but this 47 brand Pirates cap is amazing. And it's almost a shame to say that because 47 appears to be distancing themselves from any fitteds at all. But what really separates this one is, again, the sweatband. If you start there, this is amazing. It's got this really subtle, soft weave, easily smooth and soft to the touch. But I think when it goes onto your head, it almost feels like a pillow. I've had a couple of viewers note on my channel where I've had a video on 47 brand. A lot of people have cited the sweatband as one of the huge benefits of that cap or 47 that they own. So I think they're really good at this and achieving that comfort. It's just a shame that they don't make more fitteds. But this itself was from a line called the 47 Pro. A lot of the logos and colorways were throwback, so they weren't current. So this is really could be considered a Cooperstown cap. And in fact, there is a Cooperstown logo in that. But it was a line, I think there was only maybe 15, maybe 20 teams. I think they're all gone now or on sale, clearance, whatever. The other things I would note about this is the crown is perfectly reasonable. I don't think it's stacked too high like that Cubs cap I talked about. It's got a great shape. I did not have to do anything to the profile or silhouette of the crown. It was rounded the way I like it while still having the volume and the height that I like as well. But when you put this on, it's great because even the buckram, the visor is maybe a little bit stiffer than a standard New Era one, but it still holds a reasonable curve. And so when you put this on, it is just, oh man, it's like putting a pillow around your head because of that sweatband. And then everything else is so compliant that it just feels great on. Now, the one thing about this cap is it is a wool and acrylic blend, and the dominant material is by far the acrylic. Wool is the superior fiber, of course. That's nature's performance fiber. But it really doesn't make a difference because on your head, I think it feels terrific. So maybe one of the last things to note about this Pirates cap is that it kind of reminds me of putting on a well-made, made in USA 5950. A lot of people feel that that had a really unique feel and comfort, and that everything coming in from other regions of the world that we've seen in the last 20 years or so has been more stiff and unforgiving and just not as comfortable. And, I've done some work and research, and I've compared some caps in my collection. I think there's still a lot of value in the comfort that you can get from a 5950 coming from elsewhere. I can't put my finger on all of it, but a lot of people feel that they were just better and more comfortable. All right, so there you have it. That's what I wanted to share today, and hopefully you got some good stuff out of that. I would just say that remember that the sweatband is incredibly important. Maybe that's more of a message to the manufacturers, i.e. New Era, that we could use some work there. I know they do different things in their 3930 and perhaps other caps. Second, don't underestimate the ability of the size, shape, and depth of the logo on the cap to really affect the comfort, because it's kind of trapped under the buckram, so you get some surface irregularities that can really press in on your forehead. I can feel one in this cap right now, so but I'm very picky. And then last, it might be kind of surprising that the Pirates cap is my most comfortable cap, but there's something about it that just feels right, and I wish they would make more of those, or others would kind of take notes on how they're able to deliver the comfort. When you get a cap that's not quite right for you, I've made a ton of videos of trying to help you get the right fit, the right shape, maintain the cap, etc. So I always post the links down below in the description of the video. So go check those out if you're interested on how to edit your caps. Other than that, I'd like to thank you for watching, as always, and we'll see you next time.